The message appeared like a ghost from nowhere. We need to keep her quiet. Clara's heart froze as she stared at Daniel's phone, the screen glow reflecting her pale face. The house was too still, too dark. She listened. A creak from upstairs, the rhythm of someone moving carefully. Her mind raced. Who was her? Why hide it? A whisper of doubt slithered through her thoughts, feeding on the quiet. She placed the phone back on the table, pretending nothing had changed, but everything had. When Daniel entered, his smile seemed painted on, soft but wrong. "You're still awake?" he asked lightly. "Just couldn't sleep," she murmured, her voice too thin. The air between them thickened with secrets. The final sound before silence, a soft metallic click. The front door locking from outside. And for the first time, Clara felt truly trapped in her own home. Morning light arrived pale and thin, barely touching the edges of the kitchen. Clara poured coffee, watching the dark liquid swirl, her thoughts heavier than the silence. Daniel hummed a tune she didn't recognize as he buttered toast, acting as though the night had been perfectly normal. "You're quiet today," he said without looking up. She forced a small smile. "Just tired." But her mind replayed the message over and over. Keep her quiet. Did it mean her? Or someone else? Outside, Marian's car pulled into the driveway. Daniel's mother, punctual as always. Clara's stomach twisted. She suddenly remembered overhearing Marian whispering on the phone 2 nights ago, saying, "We can't let her find out." Clara set her cup down a little too hard, and the crack of porcelain filled the room like an omen. Marian's embrace was as cold as her pearls. "Clara, dear, you look tired," she said sweetly, eyes flicking over Clara's face like she was scanning for weakness. "Just didn't sleep well," Clara replied, forcing a smile. Daniel and Marian exchanged a glance, fleeting but sharp. Over breakfast, conversation felt rehearsed, empty of truth. Ethan arrived late, quiet and hesitant, his eyes never meeting Clara's. "Work's been keeping me up," he muttered, though no one had asked. As they sat together, Clara noticed the silence between the brothers, a quiet guilt that spoke louder than any words. When she reached for her glass, her hand brushed Ethan's, and he flinched. When Daniel and Marian left the room, Ethan lingered. His jaw tightened as if fighting himself. "Clara," he said quietly, "you should be careful what you ask." The words hit her like a strike. "What does that mean?" she asked. He looked down, shaking his head. "Just, not everything in this family is what it seems." Before she could respond, Marian's sharp voice called from the hallway. "Ethan, we're waiting." He stood and left, eyes full of something close to regret. Clara sat frozen, her hand trembling slightly as she stared at the untouched food before her. The sense of safety she once knew had vanished, replaced by the hollow echo of secrets too dark to stay buried. That night, Clara found the courage to search. When Daniel fell asleep, she crept downstairs, every creak of the floorboards like a warning. She opened his study door. The air smelled of dust and secrecy. On the desk lay a half-burned photograph of a woman she didn't recognize, torn through the middle. In the corner, faint handwriting read, "Gone but not forgotten." Her breath caught. Behind her, a floorboard groaned. She turned. Daniel stood in the doorway, silent, eyes dark as midnight. For a moment, no one spoke. Then he smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep again?" The clock struck 2. Morning light crept weakly through the blinds, but it brought no comfort. Clara sat alone in the study, the torn photograph spread before her, like evidence in a trial she didn't know she was part of. The woman in the picture, dark hair, warm smile, looked familiar, almost hauntingly so. She found herself whispering, "Who are you?" But the room stayed silent. When Daniel entered, she quickly folded the photo into her sleeve. He kissed her forehead lightly, his touch mechanical. "You shouldn't dig into old things," he murmured, Clara's breath caught. What old things? He smiled, turned toward the window and said softly, "Some truths don't keep you safe." Then he left, leaving her heart pounding in the stillness. Clara couldn't let it go. That afternoon, she drove to the library, hands shaking on the wheel. She searched through old newspaper archives, her breath catching when she found it, a headline from 12 years ago. Local woman missing. Police seek leads. The photograph was the same woman she had found on Daniel's desk. Her name was Lydia Hart. As Clara scrolled through the article, she noticed something chilling. A witness named Daniel Reeves. The world seemed to tilt. Every word blurred. She whispered the name again, feeling her throat tighten. Lydia Hart. The librarian gave her a curious glance, but Clara didn't notice. Her life had just cracked open. Clara returned home before sunset, her mind spinning. Daniel wasn't there, but Marion's car was in the driveway. Inside, the older woman waited in the living room, calm as ever, a teacup resting delicately in her hand. "You've been busy," Marion said without looking up. Clara froze. "Excuse me. You always were curious, dear, but curiosity in this family can be dangerous." Marion lifted her gaze, eyes like polished steel. "Some things are better left buried." Clara's pulse pounded as she forced herself to stand tall. What did Daniel do? Marion's expression softened almost maternally. "He did what he had to protect us all." That night, Ethan appeared at Clara's door. His voice trembled when he spoke. "You shouldn't have looked into it." She stepped closer. "Tell me what happened, Ethan. Please." He rubbed his face, guilt shadowing his features. "She was Daniel's fiancée before you. Lydia. She disappeared the night they fought." His voice cracked. "We covered for him. Mother said it was an accident." Clara felt her knees weaken, the world spinning around her. "An accident?" Ethan's eyes filled with regret. "We thought we were protecting him. But sometimes protecting someone is just another way of destroying yourself." Clara didn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table until dawn, staring at the torn photograph beside her coffee cup. The truth pulsed through her veins like poison. Daniel's calm words, Marion's veiled threats, Ethan's guilt. It all made sense now. She finally understood why they locked doors, why they whispered behind her back, why Daniel's love always felt like control. She picked up the phone and dialed. When the voice on the other end answered, she said, "Detective Nolan? My name is Clara Reeves. I think my husband killed someone." The silence that followed was the sound of her world breaking open. For good this time. Detective Nolan's voice had been calm but firm when she told Clara to stay away from her husband until they could speak in person. But by evening, Daniel came home early. The moment he stepped through the door, Clara knew he sensed her fear. "You've been quiet again," he said, shrugging off his jacket, watching her too closely. "Rode." She forced a nod, her throat dry. His eyes dropped to her hands, still trembling slightly. "Clara," he said softly, "if there's something you want to tell me, you should." His tone was kind, but something darker lived beneath it. She looked him straight in the eye for the first time in weeks. "I know about Lydia." His smile froze. The silence that followed was so sharp it could cut glass. The confrontation spiraled fast. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You shouldn't believe everything you hear." Clara didn't move. "Then tell me the truth." He exhaled, almost laughing. "Truth? People disappear all the time." Lydia was unstable. "She ran." His tone hardened. "And now you're chasing ghosts." Clara's pulse thundered. "The police will decide that." His face twisted. "You called them." She stepped back, gripping the edge of the table. "I had to." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. "You just made a very big mistake." Marion arrived minutes later, her calm presence like a storm hidden behind silk. "Enough." she said sharply, stepping between them. "Daniel? Leave us." "But Daniel didn't move." "She called the police," he said bitterly. Marion's expression didn't change, though her hands trembled as she smoothed her skirt. "Then we'll fix it." She turned to Clara, voice gentle but cold. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You're tearing this family apart." Clara stared at her, eyes brimming with disbelief. "You already did that the night Lydia disappeared." Marion's composure cracked. Her voice dropped low. "You think you know the truth, but you don't know what love makes people do." That night, Clara locked herself in the guest room, her hands shaking as she listened to muffled voices downstairs. Daniel's angry pacing, Marion's hushed, urgent tones. Then the creak of floorboards outside her door. She pressed her back against it, heart pounding. A whisper followed. "Clara," Daniel said softly. "Let's talk." She didn't move. "Please," he added, his voice too calm. When the handle turned, she lunged forward, holding it still with trembling hands. Silence. Then footsteps retreating. But before she could breathe again, she heard Marion's voice downstairs. "We can't let her ruin us, Daniel." And then Daniel's chilling reply. "She won't." When dawn came, Clara gathered her things quietly. Just her phone, her car keys, the torn photograph. She crept toward the front door, shoes in hand, but as she reached for the knob, a voice stopped her. "Going somewhere." Ethan stood in the hallway, his expression torn. "Please," she whispered. "Don't stop me." His eyes filled with pain. "You think they'll let you go?" He stepped aside, his voice barely audible. "Run, Clara, before they wake up." She hesitated only a moment, then slipped out into the morning fog. Behind her, the house loomed like a memory, refusing to die. Clara's hands trembled as she met Detective Sarah Nolan at a small cafe downtown. The morning light fell across the table, highlighting the determination etched into her face. "Detective," she said quietly. "I think my husband killed someone." Nolan's gaze was steady, assessing. "Tell me everything," she replied. Clara recounted the photograph, the text messages, the library article, and Ethan's warnings. Nolan listened, occasionally jotting notes, her expression never betraying surprise. "This is serious," she said finally. "We'll need evidence and protection." Clara's pulse quickened. She finally felt the first flicker of hope. Someone believed her back home. Clara moved cautiously. Every creak of the floorboard felt like a warning. She retrieved the torn photograph and other papers she had collected, knowing Daniel would notice any disturbance. Hours passed. Then her phone buzzed. Detective Nolan's number. "I checked Daniel's history," Nolan said quietly. "He had contact with Lydia Hart before her disappearance. The police never connected him." Clara's hands tightened around the phone. Why not? Because someone hid the evidence. But now, we have enough to start reopening the case. Clara exhaled slowly, realizing that the hidden truth was finally within reach. Clara spent the next night compiling evidence. Documents, photos, and articles filled her small apartment, each piece fitting into the growing puzzle. She couldn't stop thinking about Lydia, about the night she disappeared, about Daniel's calm lies. Nolan called again. "I've arranged surveillance." "Watch him closely," she said. Clara nodded silently, her throat tight. As she hung up, she heard a noise at the window. A shadow flitting past. Fear clawed at her chest. She whispered, "They're watching me." But for the first time, she didn't feel powerless. She had Detective Nolan on her side, and the truth was finally taking form. Detective Nolan arranged a meeting with Clara at the police station. The room smelled faintly of coffee and paper. "We have partial witness statements from neighbors near Lydia's last known address," Nolan said, placing a folder on the table. Clara opened it, reading slowly. Witnesses remembered Daniel arguing with Lydia the night she disappeared. A chill ran down her spine. "This is it," she whispered. Nolan nodded. We move carefully, Clara. Your family will do everything to keep this covered. But justice is finally on your side. Clara swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table. The truth was coming, whether they wanted it to or not. Returning home, Clara felt the weight of what was coming. She passed the study and saw Daniel standing there, waiting, expression neutral but cold. "You've been busy," he said softly. Clara didn't flinch. "I've been uncovering the truth," she replied. Daniel's smile was faint, almost imperceptible, but his eyes darkened. "Truth can be dangerous," he whispered. Clara held the torn photograph up, meeting his gaze. "Not as dangerous as lies?" Outside, the street was quiet, yet Clara could feel the tension coiling like a predator, ready to strike. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid, only resolve. Clara's phone buzzed constantly that morning. Emails, missed calls, anonymous messages. Her family had begun their attack. Marion's lawyer sent a thinly veiled threat. Daniel's texts were short, cold, unnervingly calm. "Stop digging, Clara." Even Ethan's number went silent. She realized the war wasn't subtle anymore. Every wall of her life, every friend and neighbor seemed suddenly distant. The people she trusted most were retreating or turning against her. Her pulse thundered as she stared at the messages, the weight of betrayal pressing her to the floor. How could a family protect themselves while destroying the one person they claimed to love? By midday, Clara realized her home was no longer safe. She rented a small, anonymous room under a false name. Every sound felt amplified. Footsteps in the hall, the faint click of locks, a shadow passing by the frosted window. She could feel them watching. But instead of fear, a fierce resolve grew. She began organizing all her evidence, photographs, witness statements, digital correspondence. She would expose them, no matter what it cost. The first step was proving that they had hidden a crime for years. Later that afternoon, Ethan appeared outside the window, nervous, shifting from foot to foot. "Clara," he whispered urgently, "you need to hear me out. Mom and Daniel, they're planning to discredit you, ruin your reputation. You can't trust anyone in the family." Clara stared, breath caught in her throat. "Then what do I do?" "You have to be smarter than them. Don't confront, don't argue. Gather proof. Let the law speak for you." She nodded, swallowing her fear. For the first time, Ethan was a true ally, though the cost of his honesty was clear in the sorrow etched across his face. Night fell heavy, and Clara worked tirelessly under the single desk lamp. She cross-referenced phone logs, emails, and witness statements. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Daniel's lies, Marion's manipulations, the carefully concealed truth of Lydia's disappearance. She realized they hadn't just protected Daniel, they had orchestrated a web to control her and anyone who might expose them. Her hands ached, her eyes blurred, but a spark of satisfaction flared. The story was finally complete. They couldn't escape justice if she stayed meticulous. More trying than she was moving more key. By midnight, Clara had prepared a complete dossier. She called Detective Nolan. "It's all here," she said, voice steady despite fatigue. Every lie, every hidden step, every manipulation. Nolan's voice, calm but approving, replied, "Good work, Clara. This is enough to act. Now we make sure they can't move without leaving themselves exposed." Clara hung up and looked out the window at the city below, the lights shimmering like distant stars. She felt a strange mix of fear and anticipation. For the first time since the truth began surfacing, she felt powerful. The family that had hunted her for weeks was now vulnerable. Clara returned to her apartment just after dawn. Ethan was waiting inside, wringing his hands nervously. "Clara, I can't hide it anymore," he said, voice barely audible. She leaned against the table, bracing herself. "Tell me everything, Ethan." He swallowed hard. Daniel killed her. Lydia. Mom helped cover it up. They made it look like an accident. I have lived with the secret my whole life. Clara felt her stomach drop, disbelief and horror blending into sharp clarity. Why are you telling me now? Ethan's eyes glistened. Because you're the only one who can make it right. I can't live with this anymore. Clara nodded, a cold fire igniting in her chest. Clara spent the day preparing for the confrontation. She reviewed every detail Ethan had confessed, cross-referencing with her collected evidence. When night fell, she drove to the Reeves estate, heart-pounding but mind-sharp. The house loomed in darkness, quiet, like a predator waiting. She stepped inside through the unlocked back door. Evidence folder clutched tightly. Upstairs, Daniel's light flicked on. He descended slowly, smile thin, eyes calculating. I wondered when you'd come, he said softly. Clara lifted the folder. The lies end tonight. Marian appeared in the living room as well, her composed mask cracking slightly. Clara, you don't understand what you're doing, she said, voice steady but brittle. Clara shook her head. I understand perfectly. You tried to bury the truth, but it's over. Daniel's jaw tightened. Marian's hands trembled. Ethan stepped out from the shadows, silent but watchful. Clara felt the balance shift. She was no longer alone. The lies that had haunted her for months were about to collapse under the weight of truth. Clara began laying out the evidence. Emails, photographs, witness statements. This is everything, she said. Marian's eyes widened. Daniel's expression darkened. You think this will stop me? Daniel hissed. Clara's voice was steady. It already has. The police know and Detective Nolan is ready. You can deny it, hide it, but it's over. Ethan watched silently, hope flickering in his eyes. The tension in the room was palpable, like a taut wire ready to snap. For the first time, Clara felt the weight of fear lift, replaced by righteous certainty. Sirens wailed in the distance. Clara had called Nolan beforehand. The police were arriving. Daniel's face drained of color. Marian's composure snapped. This isn't over, she shouted, voice cracking. Ethan held Clara's hand briefly, a silent gesture of solidarity. Clara felt a weight lift from her chest. The truth was free, unstoppable now. She watched as Daniel and Marian realized their control was gone. Justice wasn't a fantasy anymore. It was unfolding before her eyes. She stood tall, scarred but unbroken, ready for the final reckoning that would leave no lie standing. The Reeves estate was alive with flashing lights and the sound of sirens. Clara stood at the edge of the driveway, hands gripping the evidence folder as officers moved past her to question Daniel and Marian. Ethan stood beside her, silent but supportive. The air was thick with tension and the remnants of fear, now replaced by a fierce sense of vindication. Clara felt every betrayal, every whispered lie, every hidden threat finally laid bare. She whispered to herself, "It's over." The weight that had pressed on her chest for months began to lift, replaced by clarity and strength. Justice, at last, had arrived. Inside the house, Daniel and Marian were silent, stripped of their authority. Clara walked through the rooms one last time, seeing the walls that had witnessed lies, manipulations, and fear. Ethan followed silently, understanding without words that the house would never feel the same. Clara touched the mantel where family photos once gleamed with false warmth. Now they were reminders of the truth. Fragile, shattered, and undeniable. For the first time, she realized she didn't need their approval, their protection, or their love. She had herself, and that was enough. Clara met Detective Nolan outside in the cool night air. "You did everything right," Nolan said quietly, her gaze steady. "The evidence, the patience, the courage, it made all the difference." Clara nodded, letting the adrenaline fade, feeling a calm she hadn't felt in months. "I just want to live without fear," she murmured. Nolan's slight smile held respect. You will. And they'll answer for everything they did. Clara breathed deeply, the night air tasting like freedom. The nightmare of lies was ending, and she was finally stepping into a life of truth. Weeks later, Clara walked through a small park near her new apartment. The air was crisp, the morning sunlight soft against her face. She didn't hear Daniel's voice, Marion's manipulation, or Ethan's guilt. Just the quiet hum of the city and the freedom she had claimed. Her steps were steady, her posture unburdened. In her bag, the folder with all evidence rested. A reminder not of fear, but of the power of truth. Clara smiled faintly, a small, victorious curve of lips. Life had been shattered, but she had been rebuilt, stronger, wiser, and free. Clara stopped near a bench, watching children play and couples walk by, unaware of the dark history she had survived. Ethan joined her, giving a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of their shared ordeal. We did it, he whispered. Clara nodded, looking ahead, feeling the weight of the past lift completely. Ice, she said softly. The truth has its own justice. For the first time, she felt fully safe. Fully herself. And as the sun rose higher, Clara knew she could finally begin again, unchained and unafraid.